Welcome students of class 9th. Today I'll start the first chapter of your biology, that is chapter 5, the fundamental unit of life, the cell. So I'll start this chapter by asking a few questions. Whether you are running a marathon or sitting comfortably or exercising your brain power, your body is busy making energy from the digested food. Yes or no? Fruits ripen, leaves fall, and stems grow, all because of certain hormones, right? Puppies resemble dogs, young plants resemble parent plants, and we resemble our parents, right? So, if you agree to all these three examples that I have given, you must understand that the ability to produce energy or synthesize hormones or transmit the hereditary factors are the few examples of events that take place within the tiny building blocks of life, which we call it as the cells. So cells are the tiny building blocks of life. You all must have played with building blocks. Do you remember? So just like while making a house, you are using those blocks. Similarly, the cells are the tiny building blocks of our lives. So first I'll explain the discovery of the cell. So cells were first discovered by Robert Hooke. Okay, you can see here in the year 1665. While observing a thin slice of cork, he was amazed to find an extensive honeycomb-like structure, a structure made of little compartments. Okay, so what did he call them? He called them as cells. So Hooke called this tiny compartments that you can see as cells. The term cell is derived from a Latin word cella, which means small rooms. Okay, so Hooke he has written a book, okay, titled Micrographia, where he had explained in details. So if you have observed this structure very carefully, this is the cork. Okay, this cork, when observed under the microscope, the honeycomb like structures that you can see, these are nothing but this was first observed by Robert Hooke and he called them as cells. However, in 1674, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he observed living cells under a microscope, and for that reason Leeuwenhoek is known as the father of microbiology. Okay, so Leeuwenhoek is known as the father of microbiology. Here you can see this compound microscope. If you remember in the first assignment, I had asked you to draw this compound microscope. So this compound microscope, we use it for observing various small objects which are not visible to the naked eye. Leeuwenhoek is also known as the father of microbiology. Okay, there are various types of microscopes in the lab, but for our school purpose we use compound microscope. There are the microscope that Hooke had discovered was a simple microscope. So nowadays to observe like viruses and all, we need electron microscope. Okay, so this is all about the microscope. Now this is how onion peel looks like under the microscope. I hope you remember this. You have done this in class 8th. Okay, this is how the onion peel looks like under the microscope. The compartments you can see. Okay, these are all the cells. Now before I move to this next slide, one more thing that is not mentioned here but I have mentioned in the note is regarding the cell theory. So in 1838, please listen to it very carefully. It is given in the box in your textbook. Okay, in 1838, Theodore Swan, a British zoologist, and Matthew Scladen, a German botanist, they formulated the first theory which they called it together as the cell theory. Along with them, in 1855, Rudolf Virchow, okay, we also call it as Virchow. Virchow discovered the origin of new cells and he propounded a theory, omnis cellula e cellula, which means new cells only arise from pre-existing cells. Right? Three scientists, Schleiden, Schwann, Virchow. Okay? When their theories, they had individually proposed their own theory or their postulates, and what happened while after combining the three postulates, the cell theory was propounded. So what does the cell theory say? The first point of cell theory, all living organisms are made of cells. All living organisms are made of cells. Second point, all cells arise from pre-existing cells. So please go through the notes part. There I have written in details about the cell theory, and also I have mentioned about the scientists Theodor Schwann, Schleiden and Virchow. Okay, so this is all about the discovery of cell. Now we go to the next part, the unicellular organisms, multicellular organisms. So in your previous class also you have understood that unicellular organisms are the one which have single cell, okay? Amoeba, Chlamydomonas, Paramecium. I hope you remember all of them. So these all are unicellular organisms. Now, in spite of having only single cell, they perform all the basic functions. They carry out all the metabolic activities which are necessary for a living organism. That is the reason they are all living. Just imagine having one cell. Okay, they are carrying out all the basic life processes, right from nutrition, digestion, excretion, circulation, reproduction, everything. That is the reason they are all what? Living organisms. Okay, so they are unicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms have a single cell. Just remember these examples. Now you go to the next. So organisms having more than one cell, they perform various functions and they are called as multicellular organisms. So we come under the category of multicellular organisms. These examples explain to you the diversity in the living world, which is again one more chapter of your biology. Okay. Now here in this slide, this is also in your textbook. If you see the different cells, okay, first nerve cell, fat cell, bone cell, ovum, blood cell, sperm cell. Please observe this very carefully. What do you see in all these cells? You see that these cells are all present inside your body. This is something which is common to all the cells. But the cells are of various sizes and shapes. Just check out the shape. Some may be spherical, some may be oval, some may be elliptical. Okay, so depending upon the functions performed by cells, they are of different shapes and sizes. I have given you examples of only these cells, but in plants also we see so many different types of cells. We will discuss about this in the chapter called tissues, but here I am giving you the textbook example. If you see this diagram, by the process of maturation and differentiation, these cells acquire different forms. For example, if you see the ovum, okay, you see the ovum here. So just okay, see this diagram of ovum. So ovum is a spherical cell larger than the sperm. This is the sperm, this is the ovum. While the former has food reserves, the latter often has a tail. If you see, it stores energy, it stores all the food, but the sperm has a tail, right? So the neurons, check the neurons of the nerve cell. You remember, you have done this in class 8 too. The neurons or nerve cells are long and they are wire-like, so that they can transmit the messages from one part of the body to the another. So all these examples, then you see the fat cells, you can see the bone cells. So all these examples explain to you that cells inside the body are of various shapes and sizes. Some more information which is given in your textbook. So go through this also. Like the largest cell in the human body is the ovum. The longest cell is in the body. Remember, the longest cell is the neuron. Remember, largest is different, longest is different. It can also, these neurons are so long, they can be as long as 1 meter. Sperms, they represent the smallest of all cells in the human body, whereas ovum, it represents the largest cell inside the female body. Okay, so the sperms represent the smallest and ovum the largest. But the smallest cell, please remember this, I had taught in a few sections in last year. So the smallest cell which is present in the world is PPLO. Okay, PPLO. Right, the smallest cell, as I told you just now, is PPLO. What is the full form? Pleuropneumonia-like organisms, and its size ranges to almost 0.001 millimeter mm. Okay, so it is so small. It is the smallest cell in the world. Remember, often children can get confused. They write sperms, but sperms is inside the human body. Okay, so don't get confused by this. Okay, now we have understood that cells come in different shapes and sizes. So some may be unicellular, some may be multicellular. Multicellular organisms have more complex body form. Okay, so we have studied about all this right now. Now let me proceed. So we have understood what is cell now. Cell is the smallest unit that is capable of performing all the life functions. This information you have already studied in your previous class. So now the shape and size of the cells are related to the specific function they perform. Each living cell has the capacity to perform certain basic functions. Cells contain a specific component called organelles. We are going to discuss about this in detail. Each kind of a cell organelle performs a special function. All cells are found to have the same organelles irrespective of their function in and which organism they are found in. So these are the information given regarding the cell. So this questions, this you may answer it by yourself also. Why are cells of different shapes and sizes found in the human body? I have just given a few points. So why are there so many different shapes and sizes? Because each organ performs a specific function. So hence, according to the requirement, cells have different organs and different shapes and sizes. Okay, who discovered cells and how? This is also an in-text question. So you have to explain how Robert Hooke had first discovered the cell. Next, why is cell called the structural and functional unit of life? Because it gives structure to the living organism. That means every living organism, whether it is unicellular or multicellular, is made up of cell. And since the basic life functions like nutrition, digestion, respiration, these are common to all living beings, and all living beings are made up of cell. So cell is called as the structural and functional unit of life. While writing this answer, children, be very careful. Don't write only the definition of cell, which most of you do. You all copy it from some of the reference books. So don't follow this. You have to explain why cell is called as the structural and why it is called as the functional unit of life. Okay. So now I'll move to the next part, which is cell membrane or plasma membrane. But before I go to this, one more information which is not mentioned here in the slide. So microscopic studies had revealed that most cells have the same basic structural plan. The cells have a jelly-like substance called protoplasm. You must know about protoplasm. What is that word? Protoplasm. This term protoplasm was coined by Purkinje, 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 okay? Kinge in 1839. The protoplasm, so what is protoplasm? Listen very carefully. Protoplasm consists of cytoplasm. That means I'll write in small p. You understand P stands for protoplasm. Protoplasm equals to cytoplasm plus nucleus. Protoplasm consists of cytoplasm and a spherical body called the nucleus. Apart from this, so what does cytoplasm contain? Cytoplasm contains several units called cell organelles. So, protoplasm is basically cell plus nucleus. Okay, cell means cytoplasm. One more word, cytoplasm. Cyto, the word means cell. Plasm is the matrix. So, whenever you hear this word plasm, please remember this plasm means matrix. Okay. So each of these organelles has a specific role to play. Hence, we find that there is a division of labor inside the cell. This increases the overall efficiency of the cell, and as a result, it functions much more better. So first we will discuss about cell membrane or plasma membrane. Remember, I had given one question on this in the first assignment. So plasma membrane is also known as the cell membrane. This information you already know. It forms the external covering of most cells. And remember, it is made up of lipids. This is not mentioned here in the slide. It is made up of lipids and protein. It is also called as phospholipid. Okay, lipid and protein. Some of these proteins can move within the lipid. Okay, of the lipid layer of the cell membrane. It is actually, there are various models which have been proposed and you are going to study in details in class 11th. Okay, this is there is some model of plasma membrane which we call it as the fluid mosaic model. Okay, next we have so many other models which have tried to explain how the plasma membrane looks like, but we are not interested in the structure of plasma membrane in class 9th. For the time being, the information that you must have with you is that it is made up of lipids and proteins. Okay, the lipid layer, of course, it is a bilayer, that means both sides, and also proteins are present there. So the plasma membrane's function is the most important. Okay, the plasma membrane allows the movement of only certain substances across it and prevents the rest. So, it is known as selectively permeable membrane. What do you mean by this word selectively permeable? It allows the entry and exit of a few selected substances. Very important 1-mark question. Why is plasma membrane called selectively permeable membrane? Selectively means it allows entry of few substances which the cell considers as important, whereas it ignores those substances which are not required. So this is a type of mechanism which the plasma membrane helps the cell to develop. So this is very important point, this term selectively permeable. It is a very important point to describe plasma membrane. Rest functions of plasma membrane, of course, it gives a definite shape to the cell. Okay. Number 1, you can note it down. Plasma membrane gives definite shape to the cell. Number 2, it acts as a mechanical barrier and gives protection to the cell. How? How does it give protection? Because what is its role? It regulates the entry and exit of substances, right? So this selectively permeability rather, it acts like a protection to the cell. The fluid nature, of course, makes it very flexible, and one more very important, it plays an important role, especially in the immune responses. You know, there are certain factors which are present in the plasma membrane. This I am giving you as an additional information. So you can note it, just remember, not for exam purpose. Now we are going through this COVID crisis, right? So you must have heard about plasma therapy. Yeah, you must have heard about plasma therapy, which is now in discussion. So there are certain factors present in the plasma membrane. They often have a very important role to play, especially in immune system. So immune responses, this plasma therapy works it has a very good response. Okay, this is just an additional information, not for your exam purpose. Right, so this is all about plasma membrane. I hope you have understood what is plasma membrane. Structure of plasma membrane, it is not mentioned, but you remember it is made up of lipids and proteins. It forms the external covering, be it a cell membrane, be it a plant cell, or be it an animal cell. In all of them, this plasma membrane is very much common. Next we go to this next slide. I hope everyone has understood till here. After understanding the function of plasma membrane, next thing that you have to understand is how the transport of substance takes place. Okay, so diffusion takes place in all the three states of matter. It is the net movement of solute particles from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. For example, you think this example and understand gaseous exchange between tissues and blood capillaries. You know your body is made up of cells. Cells combine to form tissues. Now how does this exchange takes place? How does the gaseous exchange takes place? The cells produce carbon dioxide, right? So inside the cell, because of respiration, you know, carbon dioxide is produced. The concentration of carbon dioxide is greater in the cells. Please understand very clearly here. The concentration of carbon dioxide inside the cells is greater as compared to the blood capillaries. Okay, inside the blood, the concentration of carbon dioxide is less because the concentration of oxygen is higher. So, carbon dioxide from the cell moves across the cell membrane through the membrane of the capillaries into the blood. On the other hand, oxygen diffuses from the blood into the cells. So what is happening actually? This is because of this permeability of the plasma membrane that this gaseous exchange is taking place. Suppose if the carbon dioxide concentration increases inside the blood, what will happen? Your blood cells, they will not be able to survive under this condition. So concentration of carbon dioxide is greater in the cells compared to the blood. Okay, and the reverse is true for oxygen. So certain molecules, okay, that from this one thing more you must understand. So oxygen diffuses from blood into the cells because your cells need oxygen for respiration. You got my point? That means the concentration of carbon dioxide. Again, I am explaining. Please understand this because you have a question coming up based on this. Okay. Again, I am explaining for your convenience. The cells produce carbon dioxide, right? As a result of respiration. And the concentration of carbon dioxide is greater in the cells as compared to the blood present in the capillaries. And so, carbon dioxide from the cell moves across the cell membrane through that because it is permeable and moves into the blood. On the other hand, because from the blood it will go to the lungs for oxygenation, you know this. On the other hand, oxygen diffuses from blood into the cells. So how is it possible? How is this diffusion taking place? It is taking place because of this plasma membrane's nature, which is permeable nature. So this is about how transport of carbon dioxide and oxygen takes place in the blood. Next, if it is for water molecules also, because you know in the body along with carbon dioxide you have water. So how does the transport of water take place? It cannot take place only with the help of this plasma membrane because you know water molecules also move across the membrane through special channels. This movement of water across the semi-permeable membrane from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is termed as osmosis. So, in simple word, I can say that osmosis is diffusion of water across a semi-permeable membrane like the cell membrane. That means diffusion takes place in all the three states, but osmosis takes place only in case of water molecules. Okay, so water molecules, they undergo the process of diffusion, which we call it as osmosis. Okay, diffusion of water is nothing but osmosis. So here you can see this. If you see this diagram clearly, this is low sugar concentration, high sugar concentration. So what happens to the cell? We are going to study about three types of solutions. First of all, before going into this, I'll explain in details. Please understand this point very carefully, because this you will get a question based on this. But before moving to this, let me discuss how do substances like carbon dioxide and water move in and out of the cell. So this answer just now I have told you how concentration of carbon dioxide and oxygen, how you can explain this concentration of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the external environment and the internal environment, and also along with this you can explain about water, how the movement of water takes place. This will complete your answer. Okay, so go through this. Next, difference between diffusion and osmosis. Just now I have taken, it does not require a semi-permeable medium, but osmosis requires a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, it takes place only in the liquid medium, osmosis, but diffusion can occur in all the three medium. Okay, now we come to the next, the three types of solution: hypotonic solution, isotonic solution, and one is hypertonic solution. There are three types of solutions we are going to study. While studying the effects of different solutions on plants and animal cells, three conditions may arise. The first is called as hypotonic solution. Now, hypo, it is the solution surrounding the cell which has higher water concentration than that in the cell. That means a solution which is dilute. Okay, a solution which is dilute, that is called as DIL. Okay, a solution which is dilute has more water molecules than what is present in the cell is said to be hypotonic. Now, what happens when to an animal cell which is placed in an hypotonic solution? So what will happen? If an animal cell is placed in a hypotonic solution, water from the solution outside moves into the cell by virtue of osmosis. We call it as endosmosis. N-E-N-D-O, endoosmosis. So what happens as a result? The cell will swell up. Okay, it will become like just like a balloon. Okay, it will swell up, the water enters the cell as a result, and if this continues for a longer period of time, the cell will burst just like a balloon. Okay, please note that water molecules will move across the membrane on both sides. However, there will be a greater movement of water molecules into the cell than outside, because it is a hypotonic solution, which is a dilute solution. So again I am repeating, hypotonic solution is a solution in which the surrounding the cell has higher water concentration than inside the cell. That means the surrounding will have higher water than inside the cell. If you see this diagram clearly, again you can understand this diagram. When you are making the note, children, please use this diagram to make the note, because hypotonic solution or hypertonic or isotonic cannot be understood without the diagram. So if you see here, the water molecules, water move into the cell. Why water moves into the cell? Because the outside water is much more than the water which is present inside the cell. So as a result, if you see the direction of arrow mark, this direction indicates that the water enters the cell. So if the water molecules, you can see this blue dots, they represent the water molecules. So this water moves into the cell. But remember, we are discussing in animal cell, because in plant cell there it does not burst. This takes place only in animal cell. Can you think of the reason why not in plant cell? Yes, you are correct, because plants have an additional cell wall. We will discuss about the function of the cell wall later, but here now we will remain in our topic only, that is hypotonic solution. So I hope you have understood what happens in a hypotonic solution. So ultimately what will happen when the process continues, if it continues for a longer period of time, the cell will increase in size, and as a result the cell may even burst. So this is all about hypotonic solution. Next we go to the next slide, that is in isotonic solution. So what is an isotonic? The word iso itself means same. Okay, if the concentration of water molecules in the solution is the same as that of the cell, there will be no net movement of water molecules across the membrane. So water molecules can move from external medium into the cell and vice versa. However, the net movement of water molecules is actually zero. Why is it zero? So because the amount of water which is entering the cell is equal to the amount of water which is leaving the cell. So such a solution is said to be isotonic solution. Okay, example I am giving here, Ringer's solution. You can note it is not given in the textbook. Ringer. Ringer's solution is a solution containing various salts isotonic to that of the body fluids of an animal. So I hope you could understand this. Again I am writing it, Ringer's, Ringer''S. This Ringer's solution, it is a solution containing various salts which are isotonic to the body fluids of an animal. So as a result, in isotonic solution, if an animal cell is placed, what will be the net result? Let us see. Here you can see that the same amount of water inside the cell and outside the cell. So as a result, there is ultimately no change in the shape of the cell. That means if a cell is placed in an isotonic solution, there will be no net movement. As a result, no net movement of what? Water molecules. As a result, the cell remains same size as the original. So next we go to the next solution, which is what? We have discussed hypotonic, we have discussed isotonic, and the last one is hypertonic. Okay. So what happens if a cell is placed in an hypertonic solution? First of all, you must know what is hypertonic solution. In case the solution has less water than that of the cell, it is said to be a hypertonic solution, or a solution that has more solutes and less water in comparison with the cell. So when the medium surrounding a cell has lower water concentration than that in the cell, it is said to be hypertonic. What will happen if an animal cell is placed in a hypertonic solution? It loses water by osmosis, and as a result, what will happen? Here you can see, if you see this diagram clearly, the arrow mark indicates that water from inside the cell is leaving, right? So if an animal cell is placed in an hypertonic solution, it loses water, and this is called as exosmosis. So two terms I have discussed. One is endosmosis, which takes place in hypotonic solution, and second is exosmosis, which takes place in hypertonic solution. Now if you remember, I had said in hypotonic solution, the cell may burst because of the accumulation of water. The reverse happens here. The cell will shrink in size. Okay, you understood the meaning of shrink? Yes, but please remember it is only in animal cell again. A plant cell does not shrink. Okay. Why? Again the same answer. The reason behind is the cell wall, the rigid cell wall, which prevents its shrinkage. Okay, but some movement or cell of the cell set may take place. So in other words, the cell membrane along with this cytoplasmic content, it actually helps to prevent the what you can say inside the cell content is not affected because of the presence of the cell wall. Okay, we will discuss later, but now you understand what happens in a hypertonic solution for animal cell. So as I told you, it shrinks in size and finally the cell becomes very small. Okay, so this is how you have understood. Now you see the effect through this diagram. Okay, if you see here, when the cell in the first diagram, let us compare the first diagram. Hypotonic solution, water enters, okay, H2O enters. So as a result, what is happening? As a result, you can see the cell becomes turgid. The word is turgid. Okay, because of endosmosis the cell becomes turgid. Because of this second one, let us see here. In isotonic solution the cell remains the same size, right? So amount of water entering and amount of water leaving is the same. As a result, it does not have as such effect on the cell. But in case of a hypertonic solution, here again please remember, in case of this hypertonic solution, if you see this event that takes place is called as plasmolysis, which I am going to discuss now. In animal cell it shrinks and in plant cell it gets plasmolized. Just now I have told you. So two things that you must understand from here: hypotonic solution, okay, isotonic solution and hypertonic solution. So before I move to the next final conclusion part, I'll just have a very small recapitulation of what you have understood till now. Okay, first thing you have understood is hypotonic solution, next you have understood is isotonic solution, and next you have understood is hypertonic solution. Definitions. Second point, what happens when a cell is placed in a hypotonic solution, what happens when it is placed in an isotonic solution and in a hypertonic solution. Two questions, they are totally different. If you are asked only the definition, you will give the definition with the diagram. But if you are asked what happens, either you have to write about exosmosis or endosmosis, or you can use the term that I have just now said, they burst in size, okay, or shrink in size, or they remain the same. If you are not comfortable with those terms, you can use these terms also. It is done. Okay, so now let me move to the next. That is plasmolysis, the last of this. Okay, what is plasmolysis? Because it is very important phenomenon here related to this plasma membrane. Plasmolysis is the phenomenon by which a plant cell shrinks away from the cell wall when it loses water by osmosis. Just now only I told you. So rigid cell wall, it prevents the shrinkage. However, as water or cell sap moves out of the cell, the protoplasm, I told you about protoplasm in the beginning, it starts shrinking, and as a result the cytoplasmic contents that are available, it starts receding or moving away from the cell wall. This term is called as plasmolysis. You can break it like this: plasmo, okay, which refers to the plasma membrane, and lysis or lysis means breakdown. If you combine these two terms, you get the definition. It is the breakdown or what you can say shrinkage of the plasma membrane, or the cell wall shrinks away from the cell wall. That is, plant cell plasma membrane shrinks away, okay, and that is called as plasmolysis. It is a phenomenon by which a plant cell shrinks away from the cell wall when it loses water by osmosis. So this plasmolyzed cell can again be deplasmolyzed. How can you deplasmolyze it? Just think and tell me. Once plasmolysis has occurred, how can you deplasmolyze it? Of course, by placing it in a hypotonic solution. So if you place it in a hypotonic solution, because plasmolysis has occurred due to hypertonic solution. But just if you want to reverse it, you put it in a hypotonic solution, you can deplasmolyze it. Okay, so this is about plasmolysis. We have understood about plasmolysis that takes place in plant cells. Similarly, in all animal cells, okay, endocytosis is the process by which materials move into the cell in bulk. Okay, it is also called as, in some books you will get the term phagocytosis, Phago, phagocytosis. Okay, phago or taking in. It is a process by which the cell engulfs or eats other cells or particles. So this phagocyte, it could be a unicellular like amoeba, or a particular cell in the body like your WBC, white blood cells. Okay, these WBCs are also phagocytic in nature. I'll not explain this, and this is just an example I have given. So many organisms like amoeba, you take the example of amoeba. Amoeba acquires its food by this process, which is called as phagocytosis, or which is also called as your endocytosis. So as I gave you the example of WBC, just I'll say a few line here which it might sound very interesting to you. Actually, WBCs in our body, they are a type of macrophage. They are also called as phagocytic. Why they are phagocytic, you know? They eat the foreign particles of germs or antigens. Okay, we call it as antigens. Why I am saying you all this? Because now during this time of COVID-19, you all must have heard people saying to improve your immune system. So, to improve your immune system, what you are going to do is you have to increase the WBC count. Okay, so the WBCs, they form a very important part of the body's immune system because they are like macrophages. What do? They eat away the unwanted antigens or germs which enter your body. So they are also phagocytic in nature. This is just additional information I have given. You stick to the textbook, that is, you understand the process by which amoeba takes in food, okay, which is called as phagocytosis. These are the steps you must have studied in your lower class by which amoeba takes in the food. So first step is ingestion, second step is digestion. After digestion, it absorbs all the nutrients and assimilates to release energy. Finally, it is egested out. So with this, children, I have completed the first part of my video. In the second part, I'll be discussing in details about the cell organelles. For today's assignment, I have given a few questions. If you have any doubt, please ask me, WhatsApp me, whatever way you want, and go through the textbook clearly, read the notes that I have given, and only after that you attempt the answers, right? Thank you so much. Okay, stay safe. See the questions that are given in the in-text. So go through this in details. We will be discussing the next part in the upcoming week. Okay, thank you so much.